Good afternoon, students. Welcome once again to the online classes presented to you by Sri Vidyamandar Matriculation Higher Secondary School, Othangarai. Students, today we are going to continue with the supplementary reader, lesson number 6, Never Never Nest, part 2. In the previous class, we had an introduction about the author, the glossary, and the summary. In this part, let us read the lesson word by word and understand it better. So, let us start reading the lesson. The lesson, The Never Never Nest, a play written by Cedric Mount. The characters involved in this play: Jack, Jill, Jack's wife, Aunt Jane, and a nurse. The scene where this act takes place is the lounge of Jack and Jill's villa at New Hampstead. The essential furniture consists of a table on which are writing materials and two chairs. As the curtain rises, the lounge is empty, but Jack and Jill come immediately, followed by Aunt Jane. Here, Aunt Jane pays a surprise visit to Jack and Jill's villa. She is taken around the villa by Jack and Jill. They show her their possessions. Now, we are going to read the play and the conversation dialogues. Against each character's name will be given. I will not be reading the character's name. I will just be reading the dialogues. You please follow from the textbook. Jill starts it. And this is the lounge. Charming, charming, says Aunt Jane. Such a cozy little room and such pretty furniture. We like it, you know. Handy place to sit in and listen to the radiogram, says Jack. Oh, have you got a radiogram as well as a car and a piano? Why, of course, Aunt Jane. You simply must have a radio set nowadays. In between, Jill adds, and it is so nice for me when Jack's away at business. I even make him move into the kitchen so that I can listen to it while I cook. So, while showing their possessions to Aunt Jane is impressed by their possessions like car, piano, everything, the house, luxurious house, and the radiogram also. They feel proud of their radiogram also. The aunt is very much impressed by their possessions. Let us continue. Sit down, Aunt Jane. You must be tired, and we have shown you everything now. What do you think of our little nest, Aunt Jane? Asked Jill. I think it is wonderful, my dears. The furniture and the car and the piano and the refrigerator and the radio. What's it? It's wonderful, really wonderful. And we owe it all to you, said Jack. Yes, Jack, that's what's worrying me, said Aunt Jane. Worrying you, Aunt Jane? Yes, that check I gave you for your wedding present. It was only £200, wasn't it? I didn't put 2000 by mistake. Why no, Aunt Jane? What on earth made you think that? Says Jill. Well, that's all right. But I still don't altogether understand. This house, it's very lovely. But doesn't it cost a great deal for rent? Rent? Oh, no, we don't pay rent. But, Jack, if you don't pay rent, you will get turned out into the street. And that would never do. You have Jill and the baby to think of now, you know? So, while showing their positions, Aunt Jill feels she is shocked that they are owning such a luxurious place, and she asks them that they should be giving a great deal for rent. She says she is impressed when she is asked, questioned by them about their nest, their home. She says she is very much impressed and it was amazing and really wonderful. No, no, Aunt Jane, you misunderstood me. We don't pay rent because the house is ours. Yours? Asked Aunt Jane shockingly. Why, yes, you just pay £10 and it is yours. You see, Aunt Jane, we realized how uneconomic it is to go on paying rent year after year when you can buy and enjoy a home of your own for £10 and a few quarterly payments, of course. Why be Mr. Tenant when you can be Mr. Owner? Says Jack. I see. Yes, there is something in that. Even so, you must be getting on very well to keep up a place like this. So, when Jack tells Aunt Jane that they are the real owners, that they did not like shifting the house often, they wanted to be the owner rather than be the tenants. Aunt Jane agrees that there is some value in what they speak, and she questions them that they should be getting on very well. They should be earning a lot to keep up a luxurious place like that. Jill says, oh, yes, he is, Aunt Jane. Why, only last year he had a 5 shilling rice, didn't you, Jack? Jack says, of course, that was nothing, really. I am expecting 10 this Christmas. Aunt Jane suddenly thought of something. With such a short increment, how are they able to manage? This was the thought that was running through her mind. She says, Jack, I have just thought of something. That car, is it yours? Of course it is ours. All yours? Well, no, not exactly all. How much of it? Oh, should I say the steering wheel and one of the tires and about two of the cylinders? But don't you see, that is the wonderful thing about it. I don't see anything wonderful about it, says Aunt Jane. But there is, Aunt Jane, you see, although we could never buy a car outright, we can enjoy all the pleasures of motoring for a mere £5 down. And the rest by easy installments, I suppose. Exactly. Exactly. And what about the radio? What's it? Well, that is the. And the piano? Well, of course. And the furniture? I am afraid so. Well, no, as a matter of fact, it is that one. She points to another. And the rest belongs to Mr. Sage, I suppose. Yes. So, when they tell their Aunt Jane that he is expecting only a mere 10 shillings increment, she is shocked with such a low increment. How are they able to manage living in such a luxurious place? So she comes out with a doubt and asks Jill whether the car is really theirs. Jill replies, not it is theirs, while Jack says it is not entirely theirs, and Jill replies in a humorous way that they only own the steering wheel and one of the tires and about two of the cylinders, and says that it is they could enjoy the pleasures of motoring without paying outright money, just for a mere £5. They could enjoy the pleasures of motoring, and says it is very wonderful thing about it, while Aunt Jane feels that she doesn't see anything wonderful about it. Now Aunt Jane realizes that they have bought all their possessions in installments. They don't own anything of their own. They are only part owners up till now, as they have not paid anything in total. So now Aunt Jane comes to know that they have bought all these things in installments. Now let us continue. Aunt Jane. Well, I am not going to sit on Mrs. Sage's part for anyone. She stands up. While now tell me, how much do all these installments come to? And Jen sits on the sofa without knowing that it has been bought in installments. And only as a part of it is owned by them, she quickly stands up and says that she doesn't want to sit on that sofa, of which Jack and Jill are only part owners, part-time owners. They are not the whole owners. She questions them how much the installments come to for them. Jack says, well, actually, he takes out his pocketbook and consults it and says, actually, to £7 8 and 8 pence a week. Good heavens, how much do you earn? Asks Jane. Jack, as a matter of fact, that's £6. But that's absurd. How can you pay £7 8 and 8 pence out of £6? Oh, that's easy. You see, all you have to do is to borrow the rest of the money for the payments from the Thrift and Providence Trust Corporation. Jill adds, they are only too glad to loan you any amount you like on note of hand alone. And how do you propose to pay that back? Oh, that's easy too. You just pay it back in installments. Installments? She claps her hands to her head, over forehead, and sinks back weakly into the chair. Then realizes that she is sitting on Mrs. Sage's piece and leaps to her feet again with a little shriek. When Aunt Jane comes to note that they have bought their possessions in installments, she questions them how much all these installments come to for them to be paid each month. Jack tells her that it comes to amounts to about £7 8 and 8 pence a week, and he earns his income is only £6. Aunt Jane is shocked at it. She is perplexed how you can return the money, how you can pay the money, how you can pay the installments when you get only £6, whereas your installments amount to £7 8 and 8 pence a week. Jack says it is very simple. It is very simple because we can easily borrow the rest of the money from the Thrift and Providence Trust Corporation. And Jill says that these people are very glad to give you the amount on loan on your note of hand alone. And Jane, when she questions them how they are proposing to pay that back, she says that's easy as it is being paid in installments. Installments, even that? She claps her hand to the forehead. She hits her head with hand with the to the forehead, and she sinks back in despair weakly into the chair, and then realizes that she is sitting on Mr. Sage's piece, and leaps to her feet with a little shriek. Now Jack says that she is not feeling well and asks her to lie down. Let us see what happens. Aunt Jane, is anything the matter? Would you like to lie down? Lie down? Do you suppose I am going to trust myself in a bed that belongs to Mr. Sage or Mr. Marks and Spencer or somebody? No, I am going home. Oh, must you really go? Asked Jill. I think I would better. I will drive you to the station. What? Travel in a car that has only one tire and two thin gummies? No, thank you. I will take the bus. Well, of course, if you feel like that about it. So, when Aunt Jane comes to know that these things are paid in installments, she gets fed up by their way of living, and she says she wants to go home. Jack offers to drive her to the station, but Aunt Jane tells she will take the bus, and Jack, in a sad mood, says it's okay. Now Aunt Jane understands that she has spoken rudely, so she apologizes to Jack and Jill. Let us see what she says. Now, I am sorry if I sounded rude, but really, I am shocked to find the way you are living. I have never owed a penny in my life. Cash down, that's my motto, and I want you to do the same. She opens her handbag. Now, look, here is a little check I was meaning to give you. Anyway, she hands it to Jill. Suppose you take it and pay off just one of your bills so that you can say, one thing at least really belongs to you. Aunt Jane apologizes and says that she doesn't like to buy things in installments. She says buying cash down is her motto, and she wants to hand over a check that she intended to give them. And before leaving, she takes the check from her bag and gives it to Jill. Jill. As she hands it to Jill, Jill says, thank you, Aunt Jane. It's very nice of you. There, now I must be going. She pats her arm and leaves. Jack, I will see you to the bus anyway. Goodbye, Aunt Jane, and thanks so much for the present, says Jill. Goodbye, my dear, says Aunt Jack. She and Jack go out. Jill looks at the check and kissing it, exclaims, £10! Then she hurries to the table, addresses an envelope, endorses the check, and slips it inside with a bill, which she takes from the bag and seals the envelope. Then she rings the bell. In a moment, the nurse comes in with the baby in her arms. Jill. Oh, nurse, I want you to run and post this for me. I will look after the baby while you are gone. Certainly, madam, says the nurse. She hands the baby to Jill, takes the letter, and goes. Meanwhile, Jack returns. Well, she is gone. What a tartar. Still, she did leave us a bit on account. How much was it? £10. Phew, that's great. We can pay off the next 2 months on the car with a whistle. He says that he feels happy and says that he can pay at least 2 months installments for the car. when he comes to know that her aunt has left behind a check for 10 pounds. But Jill says, I am afraid we can't. Why ever not? Why ever not? You see, I have already sent it off for something else. Nurse has just gone to post it. Well, that's all right. Who have you sent it to? Dr. Martin. Jack, Dr. Martin? What on earth possessed you to do that? Now Jill started crying. She was nearly in tears. There, now you are going to be angry with me. I am not angry, but why waste good money on the doctor? Doctors don't expect to be paid, get paid anyway. Jill sobbing a little. But you don't understand. Understand what? Why? Just one more installment and the baby is really ours. She is holding out the infant a little pathetically as we black out. So, the baby, the newborn baby that they had, even that treatment that has been offered for the delivery by the doctor was being paid in installments by this husband and wife pair of Jack and Jill. Through this story, Cedric Montes sarcastically blames the society people of today who fall a prey to the consumeristic society which offers them with loans with the buy now pay later scheme to helps them to gain access to things which are beyond their reach. These people, without realizing the difficulties that may arise, easily fall a prey, and finally they find it very difficult to repay the loan, or they spend their whole life paying that loan to own such things. They are given to understand that they own things. In reality, they are not the real owners. So, the title chosen by Cedric Mount, the Never Never Nest. There is a double negative, never never nest, the home that will never be theirs. So, it is better. The moral that we should learn from this story is we should know how to spend within our means. About the author, Cedric Mount is a considerable distinguished playwright of his age. He wrote some thoughtful plays, which include 20th Century Lullaby, To Cut a Long Short Story Short, and Nature Abhors a Vacuum. His one-act plays are easy to perform, satirical, witty, and insightful. These one-act plays expose the shams of contemporary society besides delicately admonishing the guilty. Let us have a look at the glossary. Lounge. Lounge is a sitting room, a place in a home or public building for leisure activities. A living room. Cozy. Comfortable. Installment. One of the parts into which a debt is divided when payment is made at intervals. Absurd. Ridiculously unreasonable and meaningless. Propose. Intend to do something. Realize. To understand or become aware of. Thingumis. Small articles the names of which are not remembered. Motto. A short sentence or phrase that expresses a rule guiding the behavior of a particular person or group. Endorse. To make over to another. Tartar. A person of irritable temper. Possessed. Completely controlled by an evil spirit. Conclusion. Students, let us have a look at the conclusion. What do we conclude from this one act play? Through this one act play, The author Cedric Pound gives his opinion of modern day life. He says people of today are easily lured into the scheme of installments. People whose desire to own and possess things which are beyond their access or reach, their desire makes them to buy such things, and the consumeristic society tempts them, lures them into that EMI scheme, buy now, pay later scheme, where a lot of people fall prey to it. They start taking loans and pay it, keep on paying it for a long time, and they lose their happiness. But even though that EMI system can help people with money power to buy things beyond their reach, there are certain negative aspects. If people are unable to pay the money in time, they may be subject to legal actions. The possession, repossession, where whatever they have bought may be taken away. They might have to face legal action, or they might have to pay the penalty. Further, they will have to pay a lot of money until the installments are over, which will take a long time for them to own the things that they have bought. In fact, through this scheme, the people are made to understand that they can possess things which they own, but in fact it is not true. It might be taken away, or they might be subject to legal actions in case they fail to pay the EMIs. So the author strictly says, he makes a sarcastic dig, takes a sarcastic dig at people who borrow money, who borrow things and buy things on installments. People are lured into buying even necessary as well as unnecessary things because of this. And they end up being debtors. So the author says that it is why people should be wise enough to spend money within their means. They should, if they buy that something which is expensive and luxurious, it should be within their means. That income and expenditure should be maintained in the correct ratio. Only then people should venture for it. Otherwise, out of desire, if they proceed further and buy things, they might have to face the consequences. This is what the author is trying to say in what happens to people who desire for things beyond their reach. So this one act play, which is full of satire, which is full of colloquialism, simplicity, and insight, is really enjoyable. I hope you have understood this lesson better. This one act play takes a sarcastic dig at people who try to spend more than the income. It advises people not to stay within their limits and not to spend more than their income. I hope you have understood this lesson better. Thank you. Goodbye until we meet again.